All right, gonna try to get this in before the rain kicks up again. So it seems inevitable at this point that Ben Simmons is gonna be traded tonight. During the NBA draft, he's gonna leave Philadelphia, it feels like. That's where all the rumors are pointing right now, is that Ben Simmons is just done in Philadelphia. That relationship is over. And I do remember hearing rumors a couple days ago that Philadelphia hadn't really even been in contact with Ben Simmons so far this offseason. And that comes after Doc Rivers talking about how they were going to put together a plan for Ben Simmons to work with him in the offseason to make sure that what happened in this year's playoffs would not happen again. So now I've had contact with him up to this point, when we're already in the Olympics, and we're already basically in August at this point. It's pretty damning of the relationship. So I think we're not going to see Ben Simmons back in Philadelphia next year. It's just a matter of who. Who is going to trade for Ben Simmons? Now, the asking price so far for Philadelphia remains the same as been. If you haven't seen the video already, I did a video, I believe, yesterday, maybe the day before that, talking about some of the trades Philadelphia proposed to other teams for Ben Simmons. There was one to Toronto that involved OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, the top pick, I think it was the 4th overall pick for Toronto this year. And there was also talks about maybe a sign trade with Kyle Lowry for Ben Simmons. That's a little bit extreme, obviously. There was talks for San Antonio for 4 first-round picks, 3 pick swaps, and a player, which I presume would be DeJounte Murray. Maybe it was Lonnie Walker, but I'm assuming it would be Murray. So those are the kind of trades that Philadelphia wants for Ben Simmons. It's basically a James Harden-level trade. And obviously they had no takers so far. So who's going to trade a James Harden-level trade package for Ben Simmons? Well, the answer right now is nobody. I just don't think there's an NBA front office that's that incompetent that would do that for Ben Simmons right now. Now, granted, Ben Simmons has the potential to become an even better player than James Harden because of the defense he has, because of his size and physicality. Because if he just got a jump shot, if he shot 32% from 3 and shot 2 threes per game, that makes him a top 20 player in the NBA guaranteed year in and year out. He just doesn't. So, and he's not even going to try. He doesn't even try in games most of the time to shoot threes to expand his range that way. We've ran a little bit. Doesn't even try to expand to the mid range for the most part. Not a good free throw shooter, which doesn't bode well for his development as a 3-point shooter. Yeah, it's raining again. Dang it! But what I was going to say is that who will actually make this trade? Who has the potential to make this trade? Well, in terms of just looking at the assets available, what teams can do this trade? Well, Oklahoma State Thunder certainly can. They have more than enough draft picks to do picks straight up, to do pick swaps. There's been talks about them shopping Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I'm sure if you include Shai in a deal, maybe with two first-round picks, maybe 3 or 4 pick swaps, maybe there's another player thrown in that package as well. I think that would certainly be enough to land Ben Simmons, because there are probably people out there at this point who view Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as a better star young player to be building around than Ben Simmons at this point. So I think the Thunder absolutely have the opportunity to do this. They have the assets to do it. They would just be insane if they did, because arguably Shai's development puts him ahead of Ben Simmons in some aspects. Now, Ben Simmons is the more complete two-way player because his defense is such a high level. He's one of the 3 best defensive players in the NBA right now. The issue is going to be that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's offensive game has developed so quickly that you have to project that he could hit, I'll say around where, in terms of points, or right around where Zach LaVine is right now. I think is where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will get to within the next year and a half or so. I don't know if he'll ever get to like Bradley Beal levels. I don't think that's going to happen, but he can get to Zach LaVine levels of scoring, and he does more with the ball in terms of creating assists and facilitating than someone like Zach LaVine does. So you're going to see that jump come from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he has the build to become a better defensive player than he currently is as well. So there's a lot of hope there for him. So I don't see the Thunder making this move. What about the Houston Rockets? The Houston Rockets have the draft capital right now. The issue is that they're in the middle of what looks to be a very, very long-term rebuild. And if you're Houston, who's the player that you're sending over? You got Deshaun Tate, who was good last year, but Deshaun Tate is not a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, not a Ben Simmons type player. He's not going to be on that level. Frankly, I don't know if he'll ever be on that level. You know, it's just there's so much of a gap between those kind of guys. So if you're Philadelphia, you might not take him. You'll take a ton of picks, though. And obviously, Houston's not going to offer Christian Wood in a deal. I just don't see the Rockets making that move because Ben Simmons, if you're trading all that for Ben Simmons, that tells you you're trying to win now. And Houston, the way they're set up, with John Wall on that team, Christian Wood, Deshaun Tate, and whoever they could get with their pick in this year's draft, with their multiple picks in this year's draft, I think they have 3 first-rounders. You know, you're, I think, better off going with that. And usually I say take the known commodity. I usually say like, go with the known player versus trying to go into the draft and find someone. But in this situation, trading all that way for Ben Simmons, I mean, I think in this case you might be better off going for the unknown, taking those 3 dartboard shots tonight and trying to get some guys into the draft versus trying to trade for Ben Simmons, because you know Ben Simmons is a limited player, and putting him on the same team with John Wall, who is also not a fantastic three-point shooter, and at this point in his career has some limitations. I just don't think that would be a good matchup for that team, especially when they have opportunity to go for this 4 or 5 year rebuild process. Who else could do this? The one team I think that has winning potential and might have the assets to pull this off. I think I'm saying assets wrong the entire day. I'm trying to enunciate that better, but I haven't been able to. The one team that has assets to pull this off and is capable of winning basically the finals next year might be the Utah Jazz. Now, the concern with them would be the draft picks, because they're picking 30th overall this year, I believe, and Philadelphia is not going to consider that they're not going to consider that a good value pick. But Mike Conley going to be a free agent. Could you do a sign trade with Mike Conley? He's a point guard. Philly will need someone to handle the ball duty, and I think that Mike Conley could help them out quite a bit. If you're not going to get Kyle Lowry in Philadelphia, Mike Conley's not that bad the next guy up. In terms of what he can do defensively, he's been all defensive caliber player in the past. He's always been a borderline all-star. He had some really good stretches this past year. So I think Mike Conley's a guy you might want to look at. And it wouldn't just be Mike Conley, obviously. They have shooters over there in Joe Ingles and Bogdanovich that I think they've been looking at trading this offseason to upgrade their team elsewhere. So if you consider throwing in one of those great three-point shooters, which is always valuable in the NBA, Mike Conley in the sign and trade, a couple of first-round picks and pick swaps as well, to get Ben Simmons, you now have Ben Simmons, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell. Is that a good combination? Because Rudy Gobert will clog the paint, Ben Simmons will clog the paint, or he'll just stay outside far beyond the three-point arc and no one will guard him. Maybe not the best offensive chemistry. Certainly a great defensive team with Rudy Gobert and Ben Simmons on the same roster, but won't be as offensively efficient as it has been in years past. I mean, they were the best three-point shooting team in the NBA this past year. You get rid of Conley and get rid of one of your shooters, you certainly do away with that forever, especially if you're bringing in Ben Simmons. But really, what other team that's capable of winning right now has the assets to go out and do this? All the other teams have bought in on other players that are more complete players than Ben Simmons right now. So I can't really imagine this trade getting done. And this trade, when I say this trade, I mean a James Harden-esque trade for Ben Simmons getting done, just because it makes no sense for every other team in the NBA to go out and do that. Even the front offices or the organizations mostly associated with making terrible decisions in the past, Sacramento, Cleveland, I just don't see them. Orlando. I don't see these front offices being the ones to make this decision, to be able to make this mistake. I just don't see it. Orlando's got young pieces they like right now. They got Markelle Fultz out there. They got Mo Bamba. They've got Jonathan Isaac come back from injury. They have young pieces that you can feel like you can trust a little bit. RJ Hampton's on the team. Cole Anthony's there. So you feel like you're going to develop there in Orlando. And in Cleveland, you're trying to deal Colin Sexton from what we can tell so far. You're going to try to keep Jarrett Allen, I suppose, this offseason. You've got guys that you like. And Okoro's on the team. Darius Garland, obviously. So you got players you like on your roster right now. They're trying to develop. They got Kevin Love there. That's going to be a bit of a weird situation. I always feel like Kevin Love should have been traded 2 or 3 years ago. I still feel like he should be traded, but, who knows? Cleveland seems to be reluctant to do that, or other teams seem to be reluctant to buy in on Kevin Love at this point. And the Kings, it sounds like they're going to try to trade Buddy Hield to the Lakers. De'Aaron Fox is obviously the centerpiece of that entire organization right now. Marvin Bagley doesn't have any value at this point. It's based on what he's been unable to perform consistently through his first couple of years of his NBA career. It seems like his marriage to that team might be over soon. I just don't see. And those are organizations, maybe New Orleans, but New Orleans has been under better leadership in recent years. Even it sounds like Lonzo might not be going back there this year. Maybe is a sign trade somewhere in there for Lonzo? Maybe. Probably not for a James Harden level trade. New Orleans is not going to send 4 first-round picks or 3 first-round picks and Lonzo to Philadelphia for Ben Simmons. It just isn't going to happen. But, would you take Lonzo for Ben Simmons and maybe an extra pick or 2 if you were Philadelphia? I don't think New Orleans would make that deal either, but I think Philadelphia should be excited about a deal like that. So yeah, I just don't see it. I just don't see where it's going to happen. It's going to have to be Utah making a leap of faith in a very weird way, or just some front office being totally incompetent and making a huge deal for Ben Simmons. Because, again, he's not James Harden. He just isn't. And he's old enough now. I think he's 25 at this point. Right, if he's going to develop that outside game, he should have started 2 or 3 years ago. He just has not. Or he shoots for the YouTube videos, for the Twitter videos, he shoots on TikTok, but he won't go out and shoot in an NBA game. That's just not good enough right now. You don't trade James Harden level trade packages for guys who just don't do it in the game. So, while I do love Ben Simmons, I do think Ben Simmons is a great player with a tremendous amount of potential. I just don't think he's worth it right now. And I think Philadelphia will find a trade package for him at some point in the next 2 months. But I don't expect it to be for what Philadelphia is expecting it to be right now, or at least what Philadelphia is asking for right now. I think it'll be something lower, but still something of significant value.